Ag PhD full episodes and more are now available on Acres TV, the newest ag platform connecting you to fields of information. Look for us on watchacrestv.com. We recently had a question come in to our Ag PhD radio show. Why would a farmer take corn as grain versus taking the whole crop out as corn silage?
Well, corn silage and what it is taking that whole crop. It's cutting the plant off fairly close to the ground and basically mixing everything together. So you've got leaves, stalk, and you have that grain and the cob even all mixed together. So that's corn silage, but it's not just as simple as that. You're going to have that go through a fermentation process over the next few months.
Well, it's kind of interesting because as that corn silage gets chopped up, the goal of that harvesting process is to chop all those leaves into tiny little pieces, but also to chop the corn grain into really tiny little pieces so it's more easily digestible for the animal. So when you look at a cow, it's not just going to eat corn, it's going to need some roughage too. By chopping corn silage, the farmer gets most of the whole diet of that animal all in one. So it's a pretty complete food for a cow.
On the flip side, for a lot of us over the years, we got rid of the livestock on the farm and we went to being just grain farmers. Well, with corn, the advantage here is we've got a great purpose for a lot of that. It's fuel. So when corn goes to an ethanol plant, there are basically three things that come out. One is carbon dioxide that gets used for beverages. The next is dried distiller's grain, or just distiller's grain, wet or dry, and that gets fed to livestock. But the other thing is, of course, the ethanol. So it's really nice with that corn grain when you have those uses for it, and very distinct uses. But it is totally separate. When you're going to harvest the grain, you leave all that residue in the field. I personally like that because a lot of that residue has really good nutrient levels, and then we save that for next year's crop.
Well, here's the other thing about harvesting just the grain. That is easily transportable literally around the world. With corn silage, you're talking about taking 20 or 30 or maybe even 40 tons per acre off a field, and it's wet, it's often 70% moisture. That's got to get used in a pretty close proximity to where it's harvested. So we don't see corn silage moving around the world the way we do corn grain. So it's kind of nice. Think about where is the corn produced in the entire world. The Midwestern states of the United States are the primary area, and that corn gets used on every, well, I shouldn't say every continent. I don't know if any's getting used in Antarctica, but pretty much it gets used everywhere corn is used around the world.
All right, last thing I've got is, I mentioned that with corn grain, we leave the residue in the field in most cases. With corn silage, obviously you're taking that whole plant off. Now there is still residue out there. You've left all the roots down below. You've got some stalk out in the field, but for most people, they've lost quite a few nutrients. So the trade-off in many cases, the silage goes to a livestock producer. In return, the farmer will get manure. So bringing a lot of the nutrients back to that field.
Well, whether you harvest corn for grain or corn for silage, to get the biggest crop out there in a cornfield, you have to stop our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?